is Martins. I'm from Latvia, and I'm a backend developer at Bitbull. In picture, you can see me and my helper Pitbull that helps me in everyday Magento journeys. As I started create presentation, I need to think something to tell about myself. It took me some while, and I finally came to this quote, which really describes me. Like, really often I'm facing some challenging tasks that are hard to be done at first. But when they are done, I think, well, it wasn't so hard at all. And another thing about me and challenges is I don't quit until they're done. I even think about them when I sleep, eat, but I will get it done. So what we're going to cover in this presentation, we will quickly check switching Magento to pane, JavaScript changes in Magento 2, and the future for Magento JavaScript, and how we can start to prepare for it now. So who haven't struggled switching to Magento 2 and get up to speed? Yeah, really. So I think the biggest problem was that in Magento 1, architecture stayed the same for a long period of time, and when Magento 2 was introduced, it was get inspired from a lot of great PHP frameworks, and Magento took the best practice from them and applied. So for those developers who had worked with, for example, Laravel or Symfony, it was a bit easier to migrate to it in backend part. But front-end part, none of these experiences help a lot. So this is how I looked when I wanted to achieve something in Magento 2 using Magento 1 experience. Yeah. I think the biggest part was to forget everything that I had learned in Magento and learn the proper way. But what's the proper way? Sure, you can go to Magento Deodocs and learn on their style. But the front-end logic for me seemed a bit over-engineered if you already had done some work with Vue or React in other frameworks. So if you are following Magento 2 community, you might know that there are some solutions already out there for progressive web apps that again will change the way how we develop front-end. So is it worth to learn the Magento Deodocs way now? I don't know. So why Magento 2 JavaScript is different than Magento 1? As we all know, a lot of backend functionality had moved to the client side, so heavy work had transferred to front end. For example, in Magento 2, the user data is get by the front end, by the Ajax call after the page load, so you can implement full page cache. And as the front end logic started to get more complex, it was harder to maintain it. So there started to come up some problems with dealing with those JavaScript script loadings and global variable pollutions and stuff like that. So it was a mess in JavaScript community in the time Magento 2 was created, and a lot of people introduced how stuff needs to be done, but there was any common approach. So the popular one at that time was asynchronous model definition, or AMD. Basically, it loads JavaScript files separately in background, and it speeds up initial page load and also help to deal with global variable pollution. So it was popular, and Magento went with that. So after that, I was thinking that I don't understand anything about it, how we came here. So I will do a quick introduction how we get there. So I hope that people are not doing this kind of things in production code right now, because it was the time when JavaScript was easy, but there was a lot of problems because, for example, like everything was in the global scope, functions and variables, and it was not reusable. You cannot like share it in different applications pages or something like that. So community came up with separating in different files. Pretty easy, but it still did not help a lot. So after that, there was another community approach to make a function scope so it won't pollute the global variable and functions. So they introduced the immediately involved function expression. That's also used in some projects. But it didn't help a lot because the code wasn't still modular. So to solve one of the biggest problems in JavaScript, to separate code and reusable chunks and expose public API, so it's easier to reuse in different projects, there was need for modular system. So in 2009, the CommonJS project started to use JavaScript outside browser. It was first that start to define the module API. As you can see, they used module export and require function, but they didn't think about how it will perform on browser because it was synchronously and whoop. Wrong button. So they give another try and they went with AMD. As you can see, it has a define function which takes a list of files as an arguments, and they are loaded in background. And once they're loaded, the anonymous function is triggered, and all those modules are accessible like variables. So it helped to reduce the script tag usage in templates and also speed up initial page load. But those two previous ones was community approach, and they wasn't specified in JavaScript specification. So thanks to ECMAScript in 2015, they came up with specification, ES6. That was the biggest change in JavaScript world since it was launched. And they defined how modules and classes should be done. Also, they bring another big syntax changes, but that's a different story. But there's a big problem with ES6. It does not work on every browser right now. You need to compile it. So after this quick introduction about JavaScript world, you might think, but Martins, why we need to learn this kind of things if we can just stick what the platform provides us to out of the box? I think wrong, because you already know that progressive web apps is right around some corners, and it will change again how we develop our front end. So I think we need to start to prepare for it now. So this will be the future way how we will work with progressive web apps. We will have decoupled application that won't rely on existing Magento frontend. So you need to write everything, starting from JavaScript, styles and templates will be new. Also, as you can see, it will connect with the Magento using the API, so you need to be sure that all your custom models are like well designed and work with API layer. As you already know, there are some ongoing development on Magento progressive web apps, Vue storefront and Deity progressive web app solutions, but they still don't have all the functionality, or they are not open sourced and we can just check it. So my suggestion is to start to prepare your custom code and make them in components, so it will be easier in the future to migrate to stable progressive web app version. But how can we do that? It's pretty simple. We can make Webpack and require JS work together. But you might ask why we need to do that. It's because, maybe a lot of developers would like to play with the other frameworks, and they really hate Knockout.js, and they want to implement Vue, React, or any other front-end framework, what they prefer. So one solution for them is to go fully with progressive web app, but it can take a lot of effort for now because there aren't any stable versions that's open sourced, and it will take some time. And for production use, it's better to like start to create your components and like do them by small steps, like not to rewrite everything on single page application, but you can just take, for example, one part and rewrite it, and you will create component, and it will later be easier to migrate to production ready progressive web app. So enough talking, we can see it in my example. For this example, I am going to rewrite the newsletter block. We will use Webpack and Vue.js. But why I choose Vue.js? It's because I like its community and easy to use. And again, another good point for it is that you can apply only for specific place where you want to work with it. So for that, you need to create a custom extension and follow me. So here you can see our npm package JSON, where we define our JavaScript dependencies. So I won't get into more details how the npm works, because there are a lot of great tutorials where you can find that information. So basically, we import Babel to transfer ES6 to ES5, Webpack, and Vue. That's it. So this is the Webpack's configuration. It's pretty easy one. It's like the default one, but the only main thing, where's the pointer, is we need to specify the library target to AMD. So this will be for that, as you know, the Webpack and require.js are both JavaScript loaders. Maybe Webpack is like bundler, better to say. So we can bundle our dependencies together and export it as a AMD. So it can help us to import that code in our existing Magento frontend. Why we need to do that? It's because Magento 2 ships with a lot of great libraries that help to work with customer data, checkout, notifications, and translations. And they are like used in production, and they are tested, and you can just only focus on what you need to create your business logic and stuff like that. So with this solution, you can just stick with your business solution, not think about how underlying layer will work, because you didn't touch it. You just import what you needed. So this is how our newsletter template will look like. It's pretty simple Vue.js application initialization. You can see, where's the pointer? The Vue.js application wrapper, and we also import our newsletter component and make it a reference as newsletter, and pass one property that's action URL. So it's the URL to the default Magento controller. And here you can see our, if you are familiar with Magento 2 front-end development, this looks familiar, the default application initializer. So here is our Vue, so ES6 part. We import our Vue dependency, newsletter component, Vue resource, and we export the Vue application module. So this module we will import in require.js and work with it there. I will show it later. But basically, we define a pretty simple Vue.js object with application wrapper, with component, and we also declare a data property for translate that we later on will use to connect with built-in Magento JavaScript translator. So you also don't need to override that. Here is like newsletters component, and this is the HTML part of it. So basically, it consists of input field and button with action send, and button shows or hides if the email in the box is valid or not. And we also use our translate method that works with, as I told before, built-in Magento JavaScript translation, so you don't need to override it. And here is the view model part, where we define our properties and two methods. One is for send and one is for translate. I think they are pretty easy, and I won't get into details. So if something not clear, you can just follow in my GitHub. There is a repo, and you can see it. This part looks familiar if you had done JavaScript in Magento 2. Basically, you import dependencies. As you can see, this is our Webpack bundled AMD module and customer data module and translate module. And we can access them using the parameters. So basically here we add our view model, that translate model from Magento. And here we use our, so basically, as you all know, if you do some interaction in Magento 2, for example, like you subscribe to newsletter, there are notifications. It's also rely on JavaScript. To make it work without any refactoring, you can just use Vue.js watch on the response property and reload it, so it works without any additional code. So here you can see it in example. We add our email, it shows button, and notification shows. So as you can see, we don't need to add additional changes in the PHP part. Everything is in default. And with this solution, I think we can better prepare for the progressive web apps. And once they are like ready for a community, we can migrate it simpler. So thank you for your attention.